one foundational principle is that the nature of life is change. So you're never going to have the same sensation, thought, or feeling forever. And even when you're saying about a week, that is like the state of that's, I think you're describing a state, not a sensation, feeling, or
Right.
thought itself.
Yeah.
And I think one way to work through that, if you're in a state right now, to people that are listening, is to try to get really, really observant of small changes in what you're thinking, feeling, and sensing, because oftentimes it all feels like anxiety all the time, or it all feels like depression all the time. But there is actually a difference between the morning and the evening in
Yeah.
terms of how hungry you are, how much energy you have, how much your arms and legs are tingling. Like, there's just what your mind is preoccupied by. So there is variation. It might be miserable variation, but even attending to the variation can help your mind kind of mindfully notice that, and then hopefully get out of it. And the other thing that I want to comment on is the way that anticipatory anxiety keeps things going. So in addition to hopelessness, as you were describing, like once you're experiencing a certain combination of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, if you're feeling hopeless about it, and then adding anticipatory anxiety, so saying like, this is terrible, I can't handle this, and that's helplessness, I guess. But hopelessness is like, this is never going to go away, and oh no, what if I feel this forever? What are the consequences going to be? And if your mind is off to the races about what this means for 3 weeks or 3 years or 30 years from now, then not only are you not in the moment noticing the variation in your experience, but you're also resensitizing yourself to anything else you experience. So if as you think that, you get another spike of adrenaline, it's going to reinforce the idea that you're going to just keep having it. So when people are in an anxious or a mood episode, often what's happening is they're waking up every morning, scanning for what they're thinking and feeling, and then noticing, oh no, this feels like it did yesterday. This is going to be another bad day. And that reinforces the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that kept the episode going yesterday also. Do you have thoughts about anticipatory anxiety, or like how the dynamics I just described will keep people stuck?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that you said that way, because it makes me able to say something I said earlier a lot more accurately. I wouldn't have the same feeling for a week, like you said. I think, for me, like a panic attack is like an earthquake, in the sense that, aftershocks are potentially a thing. Like if I have a big panic attack, it kind of echoes for a week or so. And that's what I meant by that kind of being stuck in something for a week. But the way it actually is not, I'm not having a panic attack for an entire week. It is exactly what you described, scanning for certain feelings, and, feeling helpless and hopeless in the presence of those feelings. It is, being worried about my wife going to bed, because then I'll be kind of alone with it. If I'm staying up later than she is, it's all that kind of thing that's going on in that week. So being worried that it's going to happen again, is often how it plays out. And I think what's interesting is I think that it does intersect with my condition, somewhat. So, if I'm having a particularly large amount of lightheadedness and dizziness and stomach upset, which all come together, it's all related to kind of dysautonomia for me. So that's a symptom of my condition. So early on, I think what was happening this time last year is I would get a spike of those symptoms, and I would panic in the light of those symptoms. But since it was kind of being driven by something like an underlying physiological thing, I'd wake up the next day and still feel like my stomach wasn't quite right. I lost like 15 pounds last summer, because my digestion was so slow that every time I ate, it made me feel pretty miserable. And I connected it back to panic. I just wasn't aware of the physiological process. I thought it was all a kind of panic attack thing, and I was worried that if I ate, I'd have a panic attack. So I started eating a lot less. But but this whole thing was playing out. I think initially the physiological thing would drive the initial thing, and then I'd wake up just like you said the next morning, and I'd feel still weird in my stomach, and I'd be like, oh no, like that means this is still going on. I have to be watching out, scared all day that I'm going to have another panic attack. Um, in the last week or so, I've started to have a lot more lightheadedness, and some of those digestive issues again, but it has not had the same, hasn't felt nearly as threatening as it did last year.